How thankful are you for the chance that Step 13 gave you?
Oh, geez, give me a second. I need a second there. I'm just real thankful, and they gave me an opportunity with more than enough rope to hang myself to become a man instead of just make it.
Bob Cote grew up in Detroit, Michigan, the city of the self-made man, when boxing was king. The era of Cassius Clay and Joe Frazier. In Detroit, boxing defined who you were.
My father used to box. He wanted me to box. So, I mean, the heat was on me. I was the only boy.
Detroit was a fight town, and you looked up to fighters and those kinds of things.
I remember I was a freshman and I fought a senior, and I beat him.
Bob may have a heart of gold, but he can be as tough as nails when he has to be.
He's very combative. He takes no prisoners.
You got to be very tough, and you got to have a strong sense of who you are. And you got to be pretty confident, and you also have to be a risk taker.
I mean, I know how many times he's got back up off the canvas and had somebody rub his gloves and, you know, he's put his hands back up again and stuck them.
It's you. It's you and him. You know, it's not like 12 guys in a huddle. It's up to you. You better plan it right.
Bob's really good at gritting his teeth and getting the job done, and that's how he built Step 13. That's how he put together all the policies that we follow and use in rehabilitating the guys. He grits his teeth and buckles down and gets the job done and makes the guys do the same thing.
Bob Cote moved in from Detroit to Denver in the early 1980s. He left the boxing from his youth behind and pursued a career in sales. It seemed like the easy choice, but it proved to be a costly one.
I decided I wanted to be a salesman because I could sit in the bar for a couple of days and then play catch up for another couple, and everything was just peachy, I thought.
It lent itself to his ability to sort of drink when he wanted. There was nobody around, nobody supervising him, nobody interacting with him.
So I went into sales, and that's what I did most of my life, because you could, as long as you produced, everything was all right. You know, but everything wasn't all right. It was probably the worst vocation I could have chosen.
I became more and more a part of his life till ultimately it controlled his life.
Well, I knew it was a problem, but I had a huge tolerance for booze. So I tried everything, but booze was it for me. I knew I was drinking, you know, an awful lot, but I could handle it. See, but anyone that has a high tolerance for it, that's how you become an addict. Finally, my wife, she had enough of it. She said either quit drinking or this is it. And it was it. But I'd always wind up down on Larimer, no matter where I started out drinking. The day that I decided to quit, I had about a quarter of a pint of vodka, and I was looking at Billy Power, Bob Paxton, Leroy Juarez, and call it a miracle, a moment of clarity, whatever it was, I saw myself. I said, that's you. You know, that you're killing yourself on the installment plan, and that's where you're gonna wind up. So either commit suicide or decide what you want to do and do it.
And he said he had half a bottle of vodka in his hand, spilled it out, and just decided he was not going to drink anymore, and he had a vision about how to help those who were drinking.
But Bob, once he overcame these challenges in his own life, he became not an advocate for the homeless, but he became a witness to them. That transformation, it is possible, that you can transcend whatever the problems that made you homeless, that his life is a testament and a witness that you can elevate yourself, that you can be an agent of your own transformation and elevation. And most people are armed only with an argument, but Bob is armed with experience.
Bob channeled his experience into what would become Step 13, an organization with a tough love approach to getting addicts off the streets, an alternative to a broken system that had seen more failure than it had success.
Bobby intrinsically knew because of his own alcoholism and drug addiction. He knew what worked. I mean, there's a theory, and I adhere to it. I've been sober for 27 years. And there's a theory, when you're going to go get help for drugs and alcohol, don't go to some guy who doesn't have a problem with drugs and alcohol. You know, he didn't know, you know, and it's true. And Cote understood how the street works.
You could starve to death in Denver if you wanted to, you know, unless someone handcuffed you on top of a roof or something. I mean, Denver's a very, very, very kind, caring city, but it's misdirected kindness. Any system or program that takes responsibility away from a capable person dehumanizes that person.
If someone had cancer, would you say we have to put them in a house first and we have to give them microwave ovens and television sets? Of course not. You put them into treatment.
These poor people who've lived at the bottom of society, now you're going to injure their dignity more with these
No, I'm
invasive...
going to lift them up. I want to pull them up out of that gutter. I've been out on the streets. I know what to do. Here's a shovel. Get to work.
Cote starts his men working in the shelter's car wash. Davis says it was only after Cote began demanding that he stop drinking and hold down a job that he was able to clean up his life.
Well, just by getting up every morning, going to work, cooking your own meals, doing your laundry, going to meetings, you know. It's an excellent program because it teaches you how to live sober.
It's real hard for someone with, you know, a top resume to get a job nowadays. So if you got 5 DUIs on your record, who are they going to choose? Or worse. But you showed that we're going to give you the chance that it's your choice.
Back when that street was tough, I mean, he was fearless. He had a ball bat. You know, he really was walking tall. I mean, I tell people that. I say, you know, they talk about that walking tall thing. You know, Buford Pusser. That's Bob Cote.
I've eaten here. They call that Larimer Square. See, that's Lodo. Down there, they call it Lower Downtown Lodo. In this end of town, they call it Nodo.
Nodo, yeah.
Nodo. You wouldn't want to do that. It's a nice day. Do you want to spend the rest of the day down at Denver General with the other arm broke?
I will, man.
You have to go and get fixed. Want to die in the alley?
Gonna say what?
Does this look like a Michelob weekend? And you see anybody down here playing volleyball or singing around a damn campfire? This is the other end of the boozing. I've known this guy for 7 years. And he might not last another one if this keeps up. Scheming, scamming, conning, conniving, you know, diabolical things going on all the time. It's not drinking fun anymore. You see anybody having fun? He wasn't having any fun.
Fired up. In the park.
Passed on the park?
Yeah, and some whip banks.
Oh boy.
Stabbed you?
Somebody stabbed you there?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Jose, why don't you get off this street and come back? Come over to step 13. Man,
You sure you want me there?
Yeah, I want you there. You can do it, man. You're a good dude.
I know I'm a good dude.
Okay, you gonna come or you're not? You gonna bullshit me or you gonna tell me straight?
If you help me out.
I wanna help you out. I'll get you a job. I always helped you.
Okay, I'm gonna go down there then.
All right.
Even Bob Cote's closest friends saw firsthand how difficult things were at Step 13. Neither friendship nor favoritism had a place because of Bob's unyielding commitment to the rules and his steadfast, tough love approach to a man's recovery.
The father of my son's godchildren was a resident of Step, broke the rules, and despite the personal connections, Bob put him out on the street.
Years ago, my kids are little, and I was made sure that they could see because I'd gained my sobriety. And I wanted him to understand, what this was about. So Bobby gets in a jam with some guy on Christmas morning. And if everybody's through step, the big room with the TV in it and coming down that hallway. And I'm walking in, my kids are little kids, and I got one in each hand. And here comes Cote down the hall. And he's got some guy by the scruff of the neck. And there's some words he was using, and my kid's eyes are like this big, and he's got the guy by the arm and by the back of the neck, and he spins him into that first restroom there. And Bob says, "No, I'm not a fill-in-the-blank psychiatrist, but if you want to see or know what your problems are," and he jams the guy's face in the mirror. He said, "That's your problem." And he pulls the guy back, opens up that left door step, puts the guy out. My kids are like this, and he turns around and says, "Hi, Morgan. Hi, Shannon. Merry Christmas."
The difficult characters on Larimer were not the only problem for Step 13. The fight was tough, but the fight to pay the bills was nearly impossible. Soon, it seemed Step 13 might have to permanently shut its doors.
Step 13 didn't own a single piece of real estate, didn't own the facility. It rented this facility that we're in now. It didn't have hardly any money in the bank. Bob would regularly pawn his van, use the money to pay the water bill or the light bill, whatever put out whatever financial fire there was at that point in time.
Public service threatened to turn off the utilities. They may have done so on a couple of occasions.
They turned our lights out, turned the water off.
Bob had not the wolves at the door, he had the vampires at the door. They were going to cut off the water and cut off the electricity.
It was a bad situation for Step 13, and when I came on board, I looked at it like it was probably just a few months before they were going to go under.
I mean, it was a miracle that we made it. But there were many, many days I didn't think about closing, but I was thinking, how am I going to get, $5,000?
And I said, what can I do to help? And what we came up with was my visit to Step 13. This was also around the Christmas season for a remote broadcast. We spent 3 hours at Step 13, took telephone calls.
The first caller was David Stump. He said he's going to curve me over a check for $5,000. The first caller. I mean, I needed $4,800. I'd been so happy to get that in 3 hours, but we wound up getting a little over 40 grand. And I felt like I won the lottery.
Step 13 started to become known around the country, and Bob was convinced supplemental security income was the largest supplier of drugs and alcohol in America.
I was able to invite Bob to come before the U.S. Senate and join me in some testimony about the need to reform SSI program.
And when the federal government subsidized addicts, and I had 41 of my friends die through SSI, the Social Security Department of the United States government is the largest supplier of drugs and alcohol to addicts in America today, something is wrong.
It was so unusual for someone with Bob's experience to be in a suit and a tie and giving some practical examples of how federal laws are actually destroying people that they were intended to help.
SSI, as far as I'm concerned, stands for Suicide on the Installment Plan. And they ought to put a warning label on there, on those checks, just like they do on cigarettes. Warning, this can be addictive, it can kill you, you can become dependent, and it's wrong for taxpayers to be subsidizing addiction. I don't think that should be going on in this country. There's only one way that you can get off SSI, and that's if you die.
And so it really generated an awful lot of press interviews because it was so unusual for a grassroots leader to be as articulate as Bob was.
Step 13 continues to remain in the national spotlight. Former VP candidate Paul Ryan came to visit in his efforts to better understand effective ways of shelter reform.
They do their own cooking here.
So they buy their food?
We give them 2 weeks of food when they come in here.
So for 2 weeks they're here. You got them the food, and you've placed them in a job somewhere?
Yeah, or I'll put them in a job with Step.
Step 13 has had many successes on public policy in its 30 years. But ultimately, its greatest achievement is the way it continues to impact the lives of its residents.
In the Step 13 environment, I was able to get myself physically able to go to work. I had resources available to me there.
It's the only time that I've had any significant success at my drinking problem whatsoever.
Just feel like I've got some responsibility, I've got some purpose.
You're expected to, do grown men things, take care of yourself.
Personal responsibility. What are the results and consequences of my actions?
I started working and was able to get myself back into society.
If I didn't come to Step 13, I would be either on the streets or I'd be dead, so.
Bob Cote often describes himself as a modern Forrest Gump, someone who started at the lowest point of society and went on to meet with celebrities, athletes, and presidents. It's hard to meet Bob Cote and not be impacted by his passion and vision.
Step 13, Bob Cote, have literally changed my life. I just value my relationship with him more than I can say, partly as a friend and partly, frankly, as a mentor.
For all the money in the world, I have no idea how we met. We just met. And I've loved him ever since. I watched miracles happen over, 25 years. It's been amazing.
Just a dude who, set out to help people and did help people and changed a few things.
The legacy that there is hope, there is nobody, regardless of their physical or psychological circumstance, that is beyond redemption. That Bob has demonstrated and Step has, that people can be reclaimed from some of the most challenging circumstances that exist.
Step 13 has the same fighting passion that Bob Cote embodies. The problems with addiction and homelessness are rampant, which is why the need for Step 13 is greater than ever.
The future holds for Step 13 to fulfill Bob's dream of creating a job training center, a facility where we can take the donated vehicles and use them to train our guys in automotive trades, all of the different trades that go along with the automobile business.
Step has reached thousands of people, and about 38 to 40% of the people who stay and complete the program remain sober. When you compare that with probably 6 to 8 success rate for bunks for drunks, traditional government programs, I think that's startling.
If you have a concern about street alcoholism, street drug addiction, the crimes that come from it, the sadness that comes from it, the families that are destroyed by it, there's only one place in this city, Step 13.